All right, man. Back live on the internet.
Woo!
Russell, Dr. Russell in Houston, Texas, and Eric in Austin, Texas. Two Texas brothers here.
Yeah.
We got the Texas connection going on. So like there was this interesting um, comment I heard the other day. I'll ask you about later, but just remind me about Texas migration, and we'll get into
Oh, okay.
it.
Oh, hey, I shared our video to my profile, so hopefully some people will get on the list there.
All right, sounds good, man.
And we do
Well,
kind of keep an eye out on comments that are going on in the on Facebook. So if there's something you want to add in, we might not respond to it instantly, but as soon as we see it, if we're still on, we'll talk about it.
that is correct. We will. So, um, yeah, last week we had a conversation going, and we had three people kind of furiously commenting,
Yeah,
and we missed all the comments until
we missed
after it was
everything.
over.
Yep.
Yeah. In
So
fact,
we're gonna look
I
this
went
time.
back.
We apologize.
Well, and we do. Yeah, that's not our intention to disrespect our our audience by any means. Um, so so somebody sent me a Sean Connery meme, which I just something about Sean Connery memes that are just the best. But it's Sean Connery and it says, "Today a book fell on my head. I can only blame myself." Myself.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what happened?
Oh,
What happened? What'd you do?
Dad just got in a car accident.
Oh yeah, no, I know. He and I just got off the phone.
I just Wow. Oh, wow. His car got banged up real good.
Totaled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Now
He
he can
yeah.
buy a Tesla.
That's right. He and I were just on the phone, and he said that he had uh, uh it was a 18-year-old driver, no insurance, parents don't have any insurance, and they totaled the car, and he only has liability on that car because it's paid off. So I was like, well, now you get to find out how the small claim system works. Small claims
Yeah.
court works. Yeah.
I guess you're gonna have to try to sue these guys.
They may choose to do the right thing. Dad will put them on a payment plan.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
that's I think the kind of the sad reality now is that there's like it's kind of a basic level of lawlessness that's just sort of normal. And so normally you would think, well, I'm just going to have liability on it because like, hey, if I cause the accident, that's on me. I don't need to I don't need to have any extra money put us, paying for that kind of thing. But if it's the other people, since it's the law that they have liability insurance, then that insurance will cover it. And it's like, well, maybe, right? So this, of course, assumes that they do have insurance. They might just be riding dirty, and no one's going to do anything about it, especially in a really big city. I mean, Houston had this massive issue where people wouldn't even have their car with a license on it, license plate. They would print up the paper plates, the paper
Dealer
tags,
plates.
dealer tags, but
Yeah,
they weren't even real dealer tags.
they weren't legit. Yeah.
They would just print out on their printer, and then laminate it and put it on there and just drive around. And you'd sometimes there was some people would have these pictures of multiple cars with the exact same fake tag sitting right next to each other. It's like they're not even
Wow.
trying, right? It's
Wouldn't even
not it.
didn't even bother to change the number.
No,
That's
here we go.
crazy.
And like it went on for months. Like it's still kind of a thing. Like you'll be passed in some ratty Nissan Altima with, half of the door falling off or whatever, paper plates, paper tags, and you're like, yeah, oh, I'm sure that has a title that person has, and that yeah, it's like it's factory fresh, right? They just got it from a dealer that sold it to them in that condition. It's amazing. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like so they're probably not having insurance, or if it's like what happened with my oldest daughter who got into a car accident, dude ran the red light, hit her car, have witnesses. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, he ran the red light, whatever." And then he told his insurance, "No, he didn't. She did." And so we talked to our insurance company, said, hey, look, we've got witness, here's the names of witnesses, whatever. And it says, well, their insurance is just refusing to pay it. They say that it's their client, their customer. We're not their customer. Their customer says it's not his fault, and so they're going to abide by what they're going to believe their customer, and basically just
Well, you have a police report or what?
no. Well, so the police report just says because the way it works in Houston is you've got to move the car. If the car can be moved, you have to move it out
Got
of
to,
the
yeah,
street.
out of the
So it's
flow of
like,
traffic. Right.
but there's evidence. Doesn't matter, right? Nobody cares. And so
Right.
basically, this other dude just got away with it because I mean, I got these letters, certified letters from my insurance company saying we've tried everything, we've talked to them, we've done all this stuff, and his insurance company just says no, they're just not going to pay it, and we've used up all of our recourse. We don't have any. So if you would like to privately sue them or whatever, you can. But it's like, well, fortunately, I had full coverage on that vehicle, so it's like, well, it costs more to do this lawsuit, and they're not going to pay it
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So what, right? Like, oh, I have a judgment against
Right.
me. Like, that's going to cost more to actually collect the judgment than the judgment would be worth, and so you just gotta put up with it. You just got to put up with
Suck
like,
it up.
yeah, it's like, yeah, people are. There's just sort of like a general level of, every man for themselves.
I like how you said it, man. General lawlessness.
Yeah.
I was watching Bill Maher on the Joe Rogan podcast a few weeks ago, and they were they're sitting there smoking weed, drinking French press or whatever, and Bill says something about how he's recounting some story, and he's like, well, this was a few years ago, back when this and this and this, and back when looting was illegal, and and Rogan starts laughing. But I was like, man, it's kind of interesting. Like they, a couple of weeks ago, we did our episode about the Supreme Court decisions, one of which was that police departments can forcibly move homeless people from certain areas. Like you can't just like
You don't have a right to
camp out
camp
on the side
there.
of.
Yeah.
You don't have a
Yeah.
right to camp in public places. And so, city can come up with whatever policy they want, and hey, this is the zone we're going to allow this to happen. These zones we're not going to let it happen. And the Supreme Court says it's totally fine. And finally, like of all people, Gavin Newsom in California is like, great, now we can go to
Thank
work. It's
you.
like
Yeah.
his hands were tied, and it's like,
Well, every time he
come
tried
on,
to do
man.
something about it, the activists would sue them for it, and it would get tied up in court. And he was never able. I mean, in San Francisco, I don't think he was able to enforce any of those things. He
Right,
tried to.
right. But now the Supreme Court says, look, I mean, this is, of course, people have it. And I think it's interesting, man. Like we're talking about um, uh, a few weeks ago, just kind of the general like, does it make sense? This Project 25 that's out here, right? The Trump team's got going. And I've had a chance to kind of like plow through a lot of this.
Oh, dude,
And
it doesn't matter.
why is that?
We're about to have President Harris.
Yeah, I already made my call on this one, dude. That's Trump's getting back in, for
No, no,
good or
no, no.
bad.
But it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well,
Tell me about.
we
Tell me about the
we can
2025
debate
thing.
that. We should debate
We should,
this
yeah.
right here. But so some of the ideas kind of like, well, yeah, there's too many departments in the government, and all these bureaucracies, and whatever, and they just want to like eviscerate a lot of these departments. And it's like, well, yeah, do I think there's way too much government regulation? Yeah, in the abstract, of course, right? And so, okay, well, which regulations do I want to get rid of, right? Well, I mean, like, uh, I like going to the grocery store and getting food that I know has some like reasonable standard of I'm not going to get E. coli, and like the vegetables, if they say they're fresh, they're fresh. Whatever. I like being able to drive around the streets and know that there's police, patrolling, and there's a modicum of safety. I have an expectation of and it's like, well, do you have a right to walk out of your house and feel safe? I mean, that's not in the Constitution anywhere, but well, maybe not in the Constitution, but it sure is nice. I mean, like people, you get used to it, and you're like, well, I sure would hate to let this go. So I don't know. To me, uh, this, and I think you nailed it the way you said it. It's like a certain level of lawlessness. It's like after a while, your normal, average, everyday person is like, this is some bullshit right here. Like this has got to stop. The shoplifting, the whatever else it is. It's like this has got to end. So We'll see what
No, but
happens. But
but that's the thing is it doesn't have to, right? Because you're thinking that those agencies out there work for you, the people, right?
the
Which
people,
which they clearly do not, right? Those agencies work for the sectors that they're supposedly regulate. And a lot of times you have this revolving door where like head of the industry, CEO comes and works for, the department, becomes the secretary, but because they know they're the inside, they know everything about that. They can regulate it most effectively. And then when they leave, they join the boards of directors of the same companies that they were supposed to be regulating. So those are there in order to like manage the competition between those people as they do whatever it is they're going to do, but it's not to protect you. They're not watchdog organizations. I mean, that's not what those government processes do. I mean, come on, we've all seen it.
why do you think we get safe food and safe medicine and things like that if they're not regulating that? Like, where does
No, no,
that come
they
from?
they are right. They're regulating it, but
Okay,
not as like, hey, we got to do this in order to protect the American people. It's
I don't care what their motives are. I like the result. The results are,
right.
I can count on the stuff that I buy to do what it says it's going to
So
do.
so this is I think that libertarian argument is that stuff would happen anyway, right? So like the
Because
so
word would get out that this
well
is
well
don't
just
buy
just
these products.
just for an example, right? So there's one of the things the FCC does is they put a minimum standard on broadband. Okay, so they actually pay people to research, what should be the minimum standard, and then that way they can regulate the telcos that if they claim that they're offering broadband in this area, it has to be at least at this speed, and they'll go out and verify it and whatever. And it's like, well,
That is dumb.
here's the thing though, like that
If you're
they're
not getting
gonna
the speeds you want, you switch to a different carrier. Yeah, exactly.
exactly, and if you don't
Yeah.
have that here, you have mobile, you have now Starlink, right? You have satellite internet, and so it's like that problem is not really a problem. That's going to happen anyway, right?
Of
And the
course, now
same thing,
we're
like
speaking from the
HEB versus
we're speaking.
Kroger, how
But
how clean their
we're
vegetables are is going to happen anyway.
okay, but we're speaking from the perspective of two guys with jobs, right? That have
Mhm.
some disposable cash, and we can make some choices, right? So, like, I think maybe there's a counter argument to be made that, what about the people that don't have jobs and don't have the privilege or paycheck to paycheck, and they get their internet from the library or whatever the case may be, right? So
Yep.
there's that.
And if they're getting it from the library, then what the FCC says counts as broadband simply doesn't apply to them.
That's what. Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Well,
It's
they're on some subsystem, you
sure,
know.
but that's the thing is the
I don't think the
library,
library is paying for the fast speed. They're
right?
not paying for the gigabit.
So the library may not be allowed to say in their advertising materials that the Wi-Fi in the library is on broadband. Like, oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. You got us. It's not broadband. This is all you get. Sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Every time you say FCC, I just think of that Eminem song. The FCC don't bother me. that's, that's just every time I hear FCC, I'm like, I hear
Well, that was one
that
of the
song.
things
They won't let me. So
when
let me
people were
see.
really pushing the envelope about what kind of words could be said on the
Right.
air, right? FCC was out there fining people. It's like, oh, you just pay the fine,
Dude,
no problem.
it's crazy, like thinking of like language, right? Like I remember back in the day, NWA and these songs, F the police and all this other kind of stuff. And
Oh
they
yeah.
had like letters from the FBI was sending out, like, we're gonna put you in jail and all this stuff. It's like, I mean, it's laughable today. It was just so quaint.
Oh,
It's like, man,
people were all
I was I
people.
was watching MSNBC the other day, and one of the hosts dropped an F bomb on the network in the middle of the day, and I was like, I need to switch over to Fox. Are they doing this on Fox?
Yeah, what's
how
going
many
on over
how
there?
many how many networks are dropping F bombs in the middle of the effing day? Like, it's crazy. Well, these people are riled up.
Yeah. Well,
I just had to drive home that point.
um, the other thing that I think the dam broke behind that one when I think it was Beto. It was Beto's concession speech. I want to say that 2020 when
Here in Texas?
no, well he was running for president in 2020. He was
Oh,
part of
okay.
that big primary field.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
and he dropped out pretty early on, and he gave the speech to his.
So shocking. He had such great magazine features.
He did. He was very
Yeah,
photogenic.
he had a good photo spread. He had a good
Yeah.
photo spread in that family of his. Yeah.
He's young, scrawny, likes to play, ride a skateboard around. Called himself a hacker.
Right.
That's
The
pretty cool.
Mexican RFK, man.
So he when he was giving his speech to his supporters, he said, "I'm so effing proud of all of you." And a lot of networks were
I
carrying it
remember
live.
that.
And people were like, "Oh, we're very sorry for any if there were any children listening. He was very very passionate, and we apologize. We're gonna put a delay on it
You
now."
got yeah, you got to run that 3-minute delay, man. I mean,
Yeah,
they got
just a
used to
few
that.
seconds. Just a
Trump
few seconds.
rallies.
You can tap it.
We need a 30-second delay in a Trump rally and a Beto concession speech. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
speaking of Trump rallies on delay, um,
Oh yeah.
so here one of so we're gonna it's gonna be quite some time before we find out the true and complete story of everything that went on as far as like the assassination attempt. But
Dude, did you watch those hearings? You said you were
not
going to
yet,
watch the.
not yet.
Well,
I've been
okay,
busy.
we'll press pause on that. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of stuff. I mean, we've now gotten some body cam footage of police talking about there's a shooter over there, or we saw him, or taking pictures of him, someone do something. And then but one of the strangest parts about this is that CNN was not carrying any Trump rallies live for
Mhm.
years, because
Right.
they were saying, well, this is just provide, he's just spouting misinformation.
Well,
We don't want.
they they arguably, and I've made this argument before, but I mean, they're basically responsible for him winning the presidency in 2016. I mean, they
eh,
gave him billion, and I mean CNN specifically gave him billions of dollars in free exposure
it was
by
a great
carrying all
story.
his rallies live, and then endlessly talking about and debating, like, oh, can you believe you said this? We're gonna have some experts on to say why this is
Yeah.
outrageous, et cetera. And it was like, dude, it was like that you couldn't even turn on the television without hearing, Trump, Trump, Trump,
Trump,
Trump,
Trump,
Trump
Trump, Trump, Trump. Right.
everywhere.
So
Yeah.
they had
And
not
so,
played any live.
but I had heard that years ago. They were like, look, we accept responsibility for giving the exposure. We're just not going to carry any of his rallies live at all.
Except for
Which
this
I
one.
thought was,
Except for this
oh,
one.
they did.
This one
Oh,
was live on both CNN and MSNBC. And for
tune
networks
in.
that
It'll be wild.
it'll
It'll
be
be
what?
wild.
Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, why would they have selected this one? Unless, again, this is that sort of conspiracy thing, unless they had been tipped out, hey, something's gonna happen,
Look,
or it's gonna be
so
worth watching.
like I I
It's
I
weird.
love to make fun of I love to make fun of conspiracy theories. I'm usually one of the first people to be like, dude, please, right?
Stupid. Yeah.
Uh, but but
This one's weird. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff. It's just strange.
so a couple weeks ago we talked about this, and I was like, look, I have questions. Here's what they are, right? But I mean, when you watch the testimony of this Secret Service lady, I can't remember her name now. History will forget her name as well, but just or will they? But she didn't answer a single question.
Oh no.
Like if you watch it, I mean, she had words, but I mean,
No
and
actual substantive
usually, usually, like you watch a congressional hearing, and Republicans, like, I don't care what the topic is, they are guaranteed to grandstand every time. I mean, Marjorie Taylor, the cast of characters that they have should be an SNL skit. I mean, like, they are so over the top, so ridiculous most of the time, right? This time, they were they were right on point. It was like even the Democrats as well. Nobody was like defending any of this. I mean, it was interesting to me to see like AOC drill this lady because like most of the time, you know, the party like I remember when Trump was under all these investigations when he was in office, and they would bring these people up to testify. Democrats would be like, tell us about this, explain yourself, right? And then all the Republicans would be like, first of all, thank you so much for your service. It's such a tragedy that you have to come up here and, and answer, honor these questions with, your time. And we respect you so much. And like all
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. You get the opposite treatment with Biden's stuff. Suddenly, everybody,
everybody's flip flopped,
cast
right?
is
Democrat.
reversed.
Oh,
Yeah.
Totally. It's really ridiculous. And so, but nobody was doing that this time. Like
Really?
everybody
Okay.
was like,
now I need to go watch it.
Please explain to us. And I mean, to the point where some of and I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, like there were two ladies on this panel, Republicans, that just literally were like, okay, look, I was so frustrated because they make several circles when they come up their turn again, right? And be like, okay, you didn't answer my question last time. You didn't answer. He asked. Okay, so now I'm going to go and we're going to do yes or no answers. That's all I want from you. And it was literally like, and she still kept yes or no, and and holding her feet to the fire just to get a yes or no out of her. And finally, like they were like, okay, well, do you have give us the timeline? Just run through the timeline of what happened, right? Well, right now, we're working on the timeline. The FBI, you'll need to talk to the FBI about that. No, we're asking you. I mean, you're doing your own investigation, right? So, look, what's your timeline? Well, we're getting all that from the FBI, et cetera. We're putting that together. Okay, when's the last time you talked to the FBI about this? Well, yesterday, whatever. Okay, did they go over the timeline with you? Yes, they did. Okay, great. What did they tell you? Well, you'll need to get it from there. Okay, so they told you, what the timeline is, and you won't answer any of these questions. That's what we're hearing. It was crazy. And like
wow,
anybody watching that, like I mean, of course you hear all these crazy theories about like, okay, but you hear all these crazy theories about like I mean, there's an acoustic guy who went and did this like acoustic what's great about all this is that you don't have a controlled media. I mean, so there's no controlled media anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, hey, this is the message that's coming out. They can't package it. I mean, they'll do what they can on CNN or Fox or whatever, depending on what side you watch. Here's our package presentation. Right. But everybody had. I mean, there's all this footage, all these audio, and you can get the raw files. People post them on GitHub, whatever else. Like, okay, here's my thing. And so they had this acoustic guy go through and actually like listen to the rounds that were fired, and you can tell like these are not the same gun. Like there's so. And okay, well, was it the shooter's gun? Maybe one of these police returning fire, et cetera. And it's like, well, no, because if you overlay the video, like you can see, here's what's going on. It is just so whatever. I mean, there's it's like trying to parse the Zapruder film. At this point, it's like who was here? This shot came from this angle. What all these different things are going to be gone on over the next several months. But to me, like AOC specifically was like. It's kind of funny. We were talking a few weeks ago about, left and right, left versus right. That doesn't really have the same, that's not really the paradigm anymore. It's really establishment versus like anti-establishment or populist or whatever you want to call it. I hesitate to even put these labels on it, but it's the entrenched powers versus the upstarts that are not, in the circle. Right. And AOC is definitely like, she's not in the circle. I mean, like she's an upstart, she came from nowhere. She did her own campaign. I mean, now she's a celebrity, et cetera, but like, she's not part of the, I mean, she's not towing the line on the left either. So it's like, that could be me. That was the sense that I got watching it. It was like, somebody's get a handle on this. Cause this is not okay.
Like if this is stuff that's going on, then what is the Simpsons meme? Or I'm in danger, like.
Speaking of the Simpsons, did you see that when Kamala Harris came out, her blue dress and the necklace and everything, to do that the Simpsons they nailed that one too. I told you like that Meg Groening is a time traveler or whatever.
Yeah.
The dress, the necklace, the podium, everything from years ago, accepting the presidential nomination.
Yep.
Or whatever. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, like at some point you're like, okay, well, I mean, are you guys?
Matt Groening, what's going on? I want your crystal ball. Tell me where Bitcoin's going to end. No.
or people, these people are going to The Simpsons to watch and go, okay, we need to recreate this moment this way. We need a camera over here.
It's iconic. We have to be in on it. No, hey, so we should talk about her nomination a little bit. So let me just give my just quick 2 cents.
Well, she hasn't been nominated.
Well, I mean, she got enough pledged delegates. She's the presumptive nominee.
She hasn't been officially nominated. Yeah, okay.
Well, Biden wasn't officially nominated either. It
That's
would have,
right.
right. But here's
That's right. But that's well, it's interesting because you got all these Republicans saying, "Well, we're going to sue in these states. You know, you can't just swap out that." It's like, dude, he was never the nominee. There's nothing to sue for. He was never nominated by this party. Like, there is no
well,
case here. I mean, good luck.
it'll be interesting to see that part. But here's my take on how this works. So if I remember last time, I made this point several times. Our viewers, such as they are probably tired of hearing this, but
Don't disrespect our viewers. They're very special to us.
they are. They are. But I'm sorry, viewers. But when I say like Biden's not in charge, he was never in charge. The whole point of his presidency is that the executive branch is too valuable, too lucrative, too important to be left into the hands of voters, right? And so we need to keep it in the hands of experts who, are smarter than us and choose things that are better, so on. And so that's why we have
Our overlords.
our overlords. Yes, yes, benevolent, or at least not malevolent. Just sort of whatever. Now,
Dude, my food's safe, my medicine's safe, my streets are safe.
and inflation is down. Please ignore what's happening in your pocketbook, and everything is good. Anyway, so
Thank you, overlords.
Thank you, overlords. So
we love you too.
So you have to think about.
We get deplatformed here.
I know. So you have to think about the establishment, and this is both parties, and mainstream media, and by the way, this includes Fox, as basically all one thing. It's all one blob, one thing, right? Which I sometimes call the uniparty or the establishment. We call it that. I like think of it as like a giant ecosystem where everybody kind of feeds on each other. Like
I like Blob though. I mean, it's like
Blob?
one syllable, easy to
Well,
spell. Yeah,
Blob
like
is sometimes used to talk about the intelligence agencies. So it might be confusing. Okay. Anyway, whatever we want to call this thing, it's just this one big thing, right? So Biden is basically the avatar of that group. He's in there. He signs the things they tell him to sign. He makes the speeches that they write for him on the teleprompter.
He doesn't even need to do that. They make a stamp with his signature.
Right. I know, but that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, and when he says things like, well, I'm not allowed to talk to you guys, it's like, loud by whom? Well, by the Blob, right?
My staff looking out for me.
Yeah, staff told me to. Anyway, so
my nap time.
So he's suddenly no longer viable. And like, as you were saying, it's not something where you can come back from it. It's cognitive decline is progressive.
Toothpaste is out of the tube. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's out. So then the Blob, everyone all agrees he needs to go. So all of the media where before, if you had shown videos of Joe Biden stumbling around, they would have been like, oh, that's fake. It's out of context. This is just Republican operatives. But then for a few days, so almost like a couple of weeks there, it was like every day there was like, what new embarrassing thing has Joe done?
Biden watch.
Yeah. And it's just being trumpeted out. Look at this. And some of the people on the right, I think, got into this idea where it's like, oh my gosh, they're actually doing reporting now. It's like, no, they're not, right? They're not. What it is that the Blob has decided he's got to go. But he's kind of senile now, and he's not going to get the message. He's not getting it. So he goes down with COVID. He's nap time Sunday afternoon. And
but also, just I want everybody to think about the sequence here, right? He's like, I absolutely will not get out of the race, right? I'm not going anywhere. I'm absolutely running. This is it. Whatever. And then
best choice for American people. Only God could get me out.
Right. And then the day before he drops out, he says, well, in an interview, if I, had some illness, right, I might get out, right? The next day he gets COVID, right? And it's 3 days later, he's out.
So I think very clearly what happened, and this is my take on it, is that Sunday afternoon while he's taking his nap, the Blob's representatives within the organization he's part of, draft this letter, stamp his signature on it. They don't have access to the official White House press corps for whatever reason. And so they can't put together some kind of thing. Like if you look at the way LBJ did it when he stepped down or from the race in 1968, there was a TV address, see him sign
Dude,
it.
even Nixon had the decency to come out and say,
Sure.
I'm out.
I'm out, I am not a crook. You
Not a
have the right
crook.
to know that your president's not a crook, and I am not a crook. Anyway, so so this is clearly Biden is napping, right? He's going to find out about it when he wakes up. But the thing is
Uncle
that
Joe going to be pissed when he wakes up, man.
he is. Well, but here's the interesting thing is that everybody is, because they're all part of this, they're waiting for this announcement. So as soon as it happens, instead of being like, well, this is really weird, we need to hear from the president. We got this thing on X,
Oh,
you
so
know,
much courage.
so much courage.
So much.
Oh, he did the right thing for this country. And so then we start 30 minutes later, we get another post on X saying that he endorses
I
Harris.
forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
I also endorse my vice president.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he's napping.
One more thing.
He's napping.
It's
So
like
then
Columbo. One more thing.
So now, the Blob, right? Remember, these are the people that actually control things, at least within the Democratic Party and the media. Like, they don't want to have this long drawn out convention thing. It's bad. And the thing is, though, it kind of makes it seem like the American people have more of a voice than they really do, because you're gonna have people calling up their delegates. You're gonna have all this other stuff, and we don't want that, right? We don't,
all those pesky voter engagement strategies.
Yeah. Well, because remember, the executive is too valuable, too lucrative to be trusted to the American people, to the voters. So, so then Harris is. We see these endorsements come rapid fire, boom, 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 one right after the next, and then she's able to tap into the campaign money. She gets something like 75 to 100. She's claiming 100. It may be $100 million coming into her campaign almost instantly. Which, by the way, there's going to be some. There's already been some sort of minor expose on some of these things. So you know how every once in a while they'll find on the voter rolls, they'll go through the voter rolls in some state, and they'll be like, oh, interestingly enough, there are 500 people registered to this one address, and they go to the address that's like this house that's falling down, but the mailbox is full of like mail-in ballots. And you're like, well, that's kind of weird, and it's like. They try to get these things off the voter rolls, but every time they do, it's like, well, they're trying to suppress the vote, right? Whatever. So similar kind of thing. Like there's they're finding like 200 or 300 different donation accounts coming from the same address. They're like 200 people living in the same address, all funneling the same amount of money in. So this is dark money coming in, flowing into her campaign. Now, is it against the rules? Yes. Will there be some investigation? Probably after the election. Will there be a fine of like $10,000, $100,000? Probably, right? But no one is going to look right now because we're about to see
a whole groundswell of popular support.
Yes. And we're also going to see from all the sort of normal people how inspiring Harris is. Any videos of her speaking incoherently will suddenly be deemed to be misinformation, malinformation, out of context, right? Mere Republican talking points. We all know how brilliant she is. She's an amazing legal scholar. I mean, she was the Attorney General of California, sitting senator. She sponsored 168 pieces of legislation, none of which passed. But like this really
all of which are facts, and they're very important facts.
What?
She was AG. She was.
Yes, she
does. Those are all incontrovertible.
Yeah. But anyway,
she's not a felon. These are all facts.
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch the people on the right who for a while were like, oh my gosh, the reporters are finally waking up to reality, and they're thinking, good, now we're going to get some reality-based content. And now Harris, look at all this crazy stuff Harris does. We're going to see the same kind of scrutiny. It's like, no, you will not. Harris is the hero.
Yeah, come on, get with the program. Who's saying that? Nobody on the right's going, someone's reporting finally.
I'm already watching the disappointed things. Are like, why is no one looking? Like the same people who were saying that Joe Biden doesn't make any sense when he said, look, here's something that Harris just said, and it doesn't make any sense either. I mean, it sounds like she's high or something like that. And they're like, no,
she might be. Good for her. She's from California. She
put people in jail for it. So it's like, again, this is the thing. It's like, it's okay for us.
The California rule. Do as I say, not as I do.
Will rules be broken? Yes. we'll pay a
Will anyone
fine
notice? Will
later.
anyone care?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, like the thing is, less people watch the show and think that this is occurring in some vacuum or whatever. I got plenty to pile on the Republican side too. I mean, so you got a candidate
Oh,
over there
sure.
who got no respect for anything, has violated every campaign finance rule in the book,
Of course.
completely disregarded the hat. So funny that Pete Buttigieg is on real time with Bill Maher a week ago, and Bill asked him something. He's like, "Oh well, I can't really talk about that the campaign because the Hatch Act, et cetera." And Bill's like, "Hatch Act." He's like, "Oh well, yeah, that's a federal law that says you can't really." I mean, not that the other side cares anything about it, but
Yeah.
we actually respect the rule of law. But I was like, I was laughing. I had to look it up. I didn't even know what that was. The Hatch Act says that you cannot use your official position in the government to campaign.
Yeah.
You have to have a completely separate, like, this is a campaign event. This is a function of government event. Even the president is subject to it. Like he can't get and do a press conference to campaign and talk about how crappy the other guy is.
Yep.
That's a campaign event. And it was so funny reading it because I'm like, why do they even have this law? I've seen this law violated. Like nobody cares about this law. I mean, at all. Certainly not the Republicans. So I mean, like, I don't know. To me, it's like,
But that's the thing. That's Buttigieg, who I think is probably an honorable man. I mean, he's made mistakes. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but like, yeah,
well,
he seems like he seems like a decent guy.
To your point
Sure.
earlier, you're not gonna get anybody that says Pete Buttigieg isn't articulate.
Yeah. Well,
know,
and like I said,
I've
he seems
never
to
seen him
me
space on camera.
no, he's very intelligent, and he seems to me again to be a decent guy. Like again, I'm sure the guy's been in government long enough that there's as part of the transportation secretary, I'm sure there's some skeletons back there in that closet, but he seems like a good guy. And quite different from Harris, who I am very curious to see how that campaign turns out because she's about to become a nominee who has won 0 primaries.
That's right.
Black Lives Matter on their official Twitter just denounced this process.
As I mean, like, so I had a conversation with a very dear Democrat friend of mine, and yesterday, and I was like, are you comfortable with how this is all playing out? Absolutely, totally comfortable. I'm like, she's like, you're not. I'm like, no. Uh, First of all, like, this is. Let's even first have the debate. Is she the best person to actually run? If you believe that Trump is not suited for the presidency, shouldn't be let anywhere back near the presidency or nuclear codes or anything like that, like completely, whatever. I mean, I could make a whole list of why Trump should not be president again. This is the best person to take him out. Like, I mean, if you really believe that, then you probably want the absolute best person to make sure that they're going to put him down. Like, I mean, that makes
I
sense
think
to me.
Mayor Pete would win in a 1-to-1, for example.
Well,
Secretary Buttigieg.
But pressing pause on like who the
but I mean
would be.
there are many that I think would be a better candidate in that 1-to-1 matchup.
So and you could say, well, I mean, none of these people have won anything. Yeah, okay, because again, and that's the difference with Harris is that she actually tried. She tried and failed. She failed hard, right? And so, like, I mean, she couldn't raise money. She had to drop out after I think 3 contests. So there's
she dropped out before Iowa.
But no. She dropped out before South Carolina, I believe. Anyway, well, we can go verify that. In fact, you can verify that.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. So, but I was like, okay, look. So not only let's leave that up in the air and say supposedly let's pretend that she is the very best person. Okay, let's pretend that she is. What would be the harm?
She dropped out December of 2019, a month before the Iowa caucuses.
Oh, so she didn't even present herself in a primary.
No.
Okay. All right. So we don't know. So to be fair, we don't know what the people would have said. Maybe the people would have overwhelmingly supported her.
She was polling at 7%. We don't know. It could have happened.
Yeah, but polls. I mean, who knows? Just to be fair,
Iowa just to be fair, Wild West. Anything could happen.
I thought that she had failed Iowa and maybe I'm thinking about somebody else because I have that very vividly. I'm like, oh no, I'm thinking of I'm thinking of Nikki Haley this year.
Oh,
I'm like, no, I know that she. Okay, that's
she did great. She was no.
yeah. Another minority woman rejected by the
By the
not
voters.
that there's
Yeah.
any kind of parity across the party line. But anyway, so I just it's like okay, let's pretend that she is the best nominee possible to take on Donald Trump. Okay, if you believe that, you still are claiming that you're the party of democracy and all this other kind of stuff. You're the ones fighting for, how does it make any sense to coalesce some backroom deal around any candidate, let alone, I mean, her? I mean, just she's fine, but like, I mean, any candidate without any kind of visible participatory process. Like, how is that democratic? And the response was, well, she's already been on the ballot. She won a national election as vice president. I'm like, bro, nobody. So did Dan Quayle. Then Dan Quayle elected by the people to be their vice president, and
Yep.
yet somehow, amazingly, never won a primary when it was his turn to run for president. I mean, like nobody gave two whatever about Dan Quayle who couldn't spell potato, and now
Where's the
this like
E?
where's the E? It's like
I love it.
that's one of my favorite. By the way, if you guys are listening, you haven't seen this, go to YouTube and type in Dan Quayle potato. And the look on this eighth grader's face when he is forced to add an E to potato is like,
He realizes he's smarter than
I'm
the vice
smarter
president.
than the vice president of the United States. Yeah. It's seriously, it's so great. It's great. It will live forever in infamy. And poor guy, good looking dude, right? Good looking dude, checked all the boxes and just couldn't translate. But he
Couldn't read
won
a
a
speech.
national election. Get
Yeah.
out of here with this national election garbage. Nobody voted
Yeah.
for her. They voted. Well, but everybody knew Biden could die, and so they were in essence. Okay, all right. So if you truly want to even believe that, then what's the harm in having open convention? She would have overwhelming support. It at least would give the impression that you cared what the voters think. Like it would maybe just, I mean, not maybe that's important to you if you're going to use this, attack line that the other guy is bad for democracy, which I think he is. But I mean, now you put people like me in a position where it's like, well, democracy doesn't, I mean, this guy is going to be a dictator. These people are run by some shadowy cabal. Like, I mean, what?
So, which one's worse? I don't know.
I mean, so it's like, okay,
I'll take
well,
the
now
one
I got to
that'll
go
lower my taxes. How about that?
Literally, it's like, I'll take
it's the same. It's the same. No, I'll tell you though.
I don't understand the reasoning behind this.
Well,
anyway,
so I think so you've got the people who they're, like I said, they're getting from their info from that particular bubble, and it's they're going to be sort of a drumbeat of support for Harris, and so we kind of don't expect them to really be aware of any of this stuff. But
I think they think that there's enough anti-Trump vote out there that they could run. They could
ham
run.
sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's
ham sandwich. That's an old Chicagoism, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where the convention is going to take place. But the same. We talk about like the primary being rigged. The primary was rigged in 2016 against Bernie Sanders. It was rigged in 2020 again against Bernie Sanders. So in 2020, remember when suddenly everybody exited the race, the primary? It happened rather suddenly.
Right after South Carolina.
There was like 10 or 11 people in, and suddenly, whoosh, everybody's gone. Including ones that had won some of these contests.
Yeah, Klobuchar, a bunch of these, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the only one that remained, so you had Biden, who had just won South Carolina. You had Sanders, who was making a serious play for the nomination. And then Elizabeth Warren. And the reason, and this was all revealed later on, was that everybody else had been kind of bought off. They were told by the party,
transportation secretary or whatever,
will not have any support. Maybe there'll be a place for you in the new administration if you play ball, but if not, you will be done. Your political career will be over.
But by the way, I mean, so all this has been reported before, and this happens on both sides. Every side is looking to take out their opposition by giving them some sweetener. Like, can I buy you off to get out of the race? Yeah.
But Elizabeth Warren was left in because she was the one
that wanted to give her anything.
No. They did, but she was the one that was considered.
What did they give her?
No, listen. They were she was the one considered closest to Bernie Sanders' position, that they had the same
Oh, to
kind of
split
stuff.
that.
So we split that part of the vote, and then all of the establishment vote goes to Biden. He takes the nomination. So when in the 2016 one, it was even more dramatic, where there was like the every time the reporting would talk about who was ahead, it was always Clinton ahead because she had super delegates pledged to her and so on.
And it
And
was
they
always with the super delegate count. They never said earned delegates. They just
right,
assumed, what not assumed, all the super delegates were in the bag. However, all the super delegates would have flipped over. They make their decision at the convention. And for people that don't understand this too, like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are very different in how they handle delegates. In the Republican Party, delegates are earned. I think there is a layer of, well, they don't call them super delegates, but I forget what the term is.
party
But
insiders.
there is a handful, but as a percentage, it's a very low number. So it's like not enough to really. It's kind of like an honorary, thing. Like a legacy type of thing. In the Democratic Party, though, I want to say out of the 2,000 some odd delegates, 700 of them are super delegates. So that's 1/3 of the entire delegate. So if you won every delegate out there, you'd have 2/3. You'd have enough, right? But you would have to win two
Like
thirds.
if you
You would
if
have to
you
win 2/3 of the available delegates to even get to 50%.
Mhm.
And people don't understand that. So it's like when they're like, oh, well, this is why you guys say the Democrat Party, because it is like
Yeah.
and they structure it that way because they don't trust their voters to make the
Well,
right
yeah,
decision
and so here's
because
kind of the
they let everybody vote.
well, there was a fun thing that happened in the 2016 primary, because somebody was asking them about this, or like, because I don't know who it was. They got on, I can't remember what program it was, and the question was put to this party official, like, well, isn't it a little strange that the super delegates are all sort of in the tank for Hillary? Like, shouldn't this be kind of a more open contest, and we care about what the voters think? And this party operative said, I'll never forget this. I need to look up exactly who this was. But he said, no, the party chooses the candidate, but we do ask for the input of the voters. Right? So it's like,
That's
when
nice.
you're,
Well, and it's interesting because I think before in the 60s, maybe right before the 60s,
yeah, in the
they opened
70s
up.
is when the primary system really kicked off. And before that,
Before that, the parties really did nominate their
sure,
their candidate, and at the convention. So you have these delegates show up that it's they all
you
they
would
show up to actually vote and do business.
you would elect your delegate, and the delegate would go forward. And a lot of times the delegate would pledge to the voters, like, hey, send me up there. I'm going to go put,
I'll do that. Yeah, yeah.
Hubert Humphrey up, whatever. Um, Dewey, I don't know who. But
Well, it's one of the things that's really messed up about our system on a fundamental level. Like if you take away Democrats, Republican, whatever, the fact that like the actual constitutional system, there's nothing about Democrat, Republican, or any political party in the Constitution.
no,
In fact, if you read it and you read the Federalist Papers, like the founding fathers are actually against political
political
parties. Like
parties.
they're like,
Yeah, they
look,
were hoping that would
you
never
shouldn't,
happen.
it would never happen. And it's so ironic that here we are, and we've always been in a binary system as a country. I mean, Democrats. I think Thomas Jefferson was the first Democratic Party candidate to turn, president.
Democrat, Republican before. So you
But
had
but
the
but you had the Whigs and everything. But I mean, like
yeah
like Democrats, Thomas Jefferson is their first. I mean, the Democrat. No,
Democrat
oh, it's not.
slash Republican.
Oh, I see.
That was
When
the
was the
name of the
first?
party, Democrat slash Republican.
Interesting. And then you
Yeah,
had the Whigs and something,
yeah,
whatever. And Lincoln famously is the first, Republican nominee and elected president. But these parties literally, like, they put forward, it's a machine. It's a party machine. Like the whole boss tweed, the whole image of the guys, the cigars in the back rooms or whatever. These guys are putting together their team and they're going to present this to the voters as this is our candidate for, pick the Democratic Party because we got Lincoln or whatever it is, right? Sorry, I got that backwards. But now people think that they actually vote for president, and the fact is they don't. They vote for delegates to go to the convention. They vote for electors to go to the electoral college. They're complete. People are completely like disassociated with the actual way the
yeah.
political process works, and they're mystified when it's like, oh, how does this happen? Hillary got 6 million more votes, and whatever it is, and it's like, well, maybe you
Or
should have gone to civics class and like understood how this stuff works, you know?
or in this case, Harris is going to be in the nominee, and no one voted for him.
Right. Well, but the delegates did. And that's what's important.
Right.
Yeah, every nominee gets that.
Yeah, but I think this is kind of like you have to look at so when people talk about the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, you got to look at the names really as just branding. Like it's not that the Democrat Party is more democratic. Like right now, they're sort of anti-democratic, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's nice to have a party that's basically like, let us control things. Just enjoy the pieces of the largesse of the country that we allow you to have. And if you're like, yeah, I kind of like that, vote for them. Like, but don't be like, well, the Democrat Party, they're the ones that really love democracy. It's like, it's just branding. It's just marketing. Right. Same thing like the Republicans are like, yeah, they're the ones that really care about our republic. These United States. It's like, no, they don't. They don't care. Like that's
They
not
don't
what
care.
that's not what it's
Yeah.
about.
Well, it's interesting to hear like a Republican, well, we don't live in a democracy, well, which is technically true. We don't live in a democracy. And in fact, the founding fathers didn't want to create a democracy
Right.
because they were afraid of mob rule, of people like coalescing around some demagogues sparking up the people and taking control
Yep.
of the country, which ironically is
Yeah.
about the closest thing you got going on in the Republican Party right now.
Like you've
So,
got some democratic elements to the government, but it is not a democracy.
and I think you actually brought up something to me a few years ago that I think would be interesting for people to hear. We were talking about this was, several elections ago,
Okay. Oh no.
probably 10, 15 years ago.
What did I
And
say?
we were,
It's probably pretty
well, you were,
pretty dumb now.
no, no, it was very helpful to me because, you were talking specifically about Plato's Republic and
Oh,
Plato, this philosopher that lived in Greece years ago and wrote the Republic. And Plato, would it be fair to say, is a oligarch, a fan of oligarchy, pretty
yeah.
much.
Aristocracy. Yeah.
In Plato's Republic, you correct me if I'm wrong, but like,
Mhm.
in Plato's Republic, Plato says, look, um, in any system of government, right? Some people run things, everybody else, goes to work, does their job, and tries to live their lives, right? So when you're creating a government, you have to have the support of the people to a certain extent, right? You have to get the support of the people by giving the people enough to where they're like, that's good enough, right? But you also have to take care of the wealthy people, the rich people, the people of power. They actually run things to keep them happy and keep them in a place where they're going to keep running things. Like so, you have to allow the people who have power to keep power, and then you have to give the people enough to keep them sated or whatever the case may be. And more importantly, you have to create the illusion for the people that with the right luck and the right chances and the right work, whatever the case may be, with the right mix of whatever's, that they too one day could be one of these people in
You
charge
have
of
to
things.
lie to them. You have to lie to
And
the people to make it work. That's
and it's
Plato's
fascinating to
that's
me, like
Plato's
when you
political lesson.
when you read stuff like that, like Plato's Republic, Machiavelli, whatever, like some of the stuff is like, man, this is so immoral. We were talking last week about the American myth, right? So the American myth, the way that we were raised is, we broke off from the British government and we form our own government of the people, by the people, for the people, and the government is us, and whatever. And that certainly, maybe it was true back then, but it certainly has no bearing to the truth today whatsoever. And these people, I saw Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you ever watched Charlie Kirk, but he's a conservative young guy. He's like 30 years old right now. When he was 18, he founded Turning Points USA, which is a huge political action committee now. But it was 12 years ago. He's a kid. He's 30 years old, but he's famous for going to college campuses and putting a table out with some like completely controversial sign, like there are only two genders, for example, and then people will come up and start yelling at him or whatever, and he'll just sit there and debate.
I thought that was
And
Steve Crowder did that.
well, so there may be
Oh, maybe
multiple
more
people with
people.
this
Okay,
shtick,
yeah,
but
go ahead, go ahead.
but
Sorry.
but Kirk is exceptional. He's very good at it. I don't agree with half of his positions, but he's excellent, and he's very fun to watch because he's able to just dialogue and really like put it to people in a way that if you're thoughtful and you know what you're talking about, you'd be fine. But most people have no clue what they're talking about, and so they just get completely eviscerated. And yeah, but he's up there saying, oh no, we have a republic, blah blah blah. And I, in my heart, like I'm watching, I'm like, okay, look, dude, technically, sure, right? But in reality, no. Like in reality, that's not what we have. We have the trappings of that. We have the systems and the functionality of that, but it's a system run by the few and powerful who basically just, you know, uh, it's like that old story about in the Three Musketeers, how Cardinal Richelieu is always against the king, and you got whatever. But then in reality, you find out like halfway through the book that they're actually friends. They play chess every night, and talk about like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to let you guys win. We're going to attack your people over here. You need to fall back because we're running short of victories these times. And they're constantly they're gaming out the whole thing. It's like God and the devil with Job. It's like completely toying with these people. But we need to maintain the illusion of a city under conflict or whatever the case may be in Paris. It's fascinating historical construct for what we see, I think, today. And one thing I will give,
Snowpiercer kind of plays with some of those themes as well.
Snowpiercer does a great job of that. Yeah, for people, if you haven't watched that movie, you've seen the show, highly recommend it. It is fascinating to see this in these allegories that people create that actually like they're uncomfortable to watch because you're like that hits a little close to home, man. That's I'm not comfortable with that at all. Especially the Snowpiercer when they're eating the the roach bars or whatever. It's just like it's just and when you finally find out like
Delicious.
what's in the oh delicious. Um, yeah, and I will give what I was going to say is I will give this 100% to Trump and Trump fans is that he is one candidate. I mean, people are, oh well, nobody controls. I mean, now do I think he's acted completely out of his own self-interest and enriched himself and his family, through this whole process? Yes. Has he been stuck with some court orders that are going to make him give some of that money back? Yes. But I don't think. I mean, no, none of them care about that. But he is not a creature of the establishment. I mean, they tried everything to get rid of him in 16. The Republicans did, and they just stuck with a prisoner's dilemma. They couldn't get their candidates to get out, and which is a failure of party leadership, frankly.
Mhm.
If you're in the establishment, you got to like have a meeting early on and be like, dude, we got to have. You can't. You got one guy over here that's getting like, because I think Trump was getting 10-12% of the vote, like
Yeah.
barely enough in the very beginning. But it was enough because it was more than everybody else who was splitting up the other 80% of the vote. And it's like by the time that as each person would progressively drop out, and I think Ted Cruz was the last one. It's game over. You let the camel got his nose in the tent, and now the camel's living in the tent, and you got to move out. And I think it's fascinating. Like after the events of January 6th, you had all these Republicans come out and line up, being like, okay, that was over the line. This is ridiculous. Which the average American, again, not Trump fans, but like the other 70% of people out there, the 68%, whatever the number is, right, of hardcore Trump, they were like, dude, that's over the line. Like, we don't want that. That's not what America's about. Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy. You could make a whole list of these people that were like, this is outrageous, etc. Lindsey Graham, right? Everybody bailing on Trump. We got to turn the page and move on. Thank you for your service. Did a lot of great things, but we gotta move on. And the fact that he has been able to worm his way back into the position he's in is, I think, one of the great political success stories of all time. I've never. I mean, there are some stories out there in history, which I'm a huge history buff, that are just like, wow, that is a great story. Like, wow, this one guy voted this way, and otherwise it could have gone. But dude, I mean, and the only reason people don't give him that acknowledgement is because he's such, like me personally, like I don't care for him politically, and so it's like, but you got to give respect where it's due. I mean, the guy is completely from the outside, not an establishment person, and so that's why I was like, I don't understand what's the rush around. I mean, but now you got a very very good setup. You got, here's the powers that be, here's their candidate, and if you like, and it's not even if you like the way things are going, if you like stability, you like NATO, you like America being at the the perch of global power, et cetera, whatever. I mean, do that. And if you think all that's nuts and you want to tear the system down, then
Well,
there's your guy over there.
you're talking about like the branding of like keeping America on top and all that stuff. I think I think if you look at the actual record, um, I don't think we're looking at a time of American advancement the last 4 years. Um,
No,
right. And
I'm talking about the structures that keep America preeminent in terms of currency, in terms of all the different structures
yeah.
with which we wield our empirical power around the world.
Right. Right.
Right.
I'm kind
No,
of
no, no, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying
right. No, no. Well,
those are the mechanisms that we use to use that.
I guess what I want to challenge with you is I don't think that the actions that I mean, I know that's what they've been saying, but in terms of the actions, I don't think that they've been advancing those particular goals. So if you're sitting there thinking to yourself like, oh, I
Well,
want a stronger NATO, I want better currency, I want all this other stuff. I mean, inflation's really high. We used economic sanctions in a really strange way that I think is going to promote de-dollarification. We're looking at a much more emboldened BRICS economic bloc than we had before. China seems to not be slowed. In fact, if anything, maybe even accelerated in their gain of manufacturing dominance. And I think after manufacturing dominance, you'll start to see kind of a currency dominance follow it. So, I mean, if I was a fan of say say the Obama status quo, if I was looking back at 2008 to 2016 and thinking that was how it was supposed to be done, I would not be looking at the last 4 years as a success. I mean, it seems like it seems
would you be
pretty
looking
bad.
at the previous 4 years as a success?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying though. Like if I think the position that you want,
You're in a situation of if you thought that was great, neither one of these two guys have
right,
taken us in the right
right. Well,
direction. Yeah.
but that's it's kind of like bringing up like, oh, we want better currency, better NATO, better diplomacy. Those that's like the conservatives that we were laughing about last time, saying they're going like, why aren't more pro-life issues on the table? It's like, yeah, you're not going to get that from either one, right?
Right.
You're
You're done.
so that's when you say like, well, the voices of the establishment aren't the establishment of sort of Pax Americana. The establishment as it is now is the blob, the ecosystem. What enriches the players that are currently at the table, and how can they keep other people from joining the table? And and I think that's fine to vote for. Like I really do. I'm not saying you're a chump if you do. Like if you have eyes open, you're like, yeah, I'm going to take a hit in my pocketbook. Yeah, America's going to take a hit, but at least we don't get Hitler
Well,
in office or something.
well,
Then okay.
no, I don't buy that. But I mean, I do think okay. Take the Trump position of America first, which I think. I mean, if you're an American, how can you object to America first, right? That's a
No,
great act
no.
of branding.
We have to sacrifice our own people to help others.
That doesn't sell on the
For
campaign trail.
example,
So
well, no,
I mean,
that's why,
yeah,
for example, we don't have. That's why our medicine prices are so high, because we have to fund all the R&D so that the other countries can get them for cheap.
that's not that is not the argument. I get why you want to
So,
characterize it that way, but no, the argument is the fact that we have a capitalist system here where drug companies can profit off the drugs they make spurs innovation. We're the ones that get that taste of innovation faster than anybody else. So, I mean, and frankly, like
we
not we,
subsidize
but
it.
like
That's
we subsidize it,
that's your insurance
taxes
dollars at work
subsidize it,
right
RD,
there.
and your insurance premiums, et cetera, and so therefore we can access it. And because of that, the drug companies are incentivized to go make cool drugs. It's not because we're trying to like help the rest of the world. I mean, that's a great
Oh, I've heard that
byproduct of
argument
that.
though.
Is that, yeah,
They're like, well, why don't we?
that's I mean, that,
Other countries,
again, these are not ideas that are going to sell on the stump. So if you're talking about like, I'm just talking about on the stump. If I'm a politician and I'm taking a message to the people, right?
Mhm.
Or if I'm a paycheck to paycheck voter, okay, and somebody comes along and says, we're going to put America and America's workers and America's interests first, right? That is an appealing argument to me as if I was run of the mill paycheck. I am a run of the mill person. So that it's very difficult to argue with that. So like, okay, I like that. America first sounds good. How are you going to do that? Right. Okay. So now we get into the nitty gritty of what policies you're going to put in place that are going to advance my position, my family. Right. So like you say, okay, well, we're going to make sure that food and groceries and everything else that you get is more affordable. We're going to reverse this high inflation. Great. How are you going to do that? Right. And like, for example, like, you've got like this, we're going to raise tariffs on yeah, I don't know what I don't have the policy paper in front of me, but it is a massive number of products that we import. We're going to raise tariffs on all these because we're going to stick it to the Chinese. We're going to stick it to all these people, right? Like they've been screwing us over. We're going to screw them over. And okay, I like the way that sounds. I've been getting screwed over. It's time somebody else got screwed over, right? However, the end result of adding all these tariffs is that the price for the stuff that I buy, which is already higher because of inflation, is now going to be even higher because of the added tariffs. It's not like these companies are going to take it in the shorts, you know. So will it give an advantage? Now, here's what tariffs would do theoretically: if we had a manufacturing base, et cetera, it would make local manufacturing in America more appealing to the customer because the customer isn't getting all these added on tariffs. And there's the whole idea behind it, right? Is that that's going to shore up American manufacturing, et cetera, and make it profitable again. Just like it became profitable to frack after price of oil went up. Same thing, right? Okay, I get that, but I mean that's 5-6 years down the road. That's not enact these tariffs and all of a sudden the market is replete with cheap American goods. In fact, the goods are just as expensive to make in America after the tariffs as they were before the tariffs. The only reason it looks cheaper is because everything else is more expensive now. And people don't think about that. They're just like, oh yeah, we get Trump in there because he's gonna screw all these people. It's like you're gonna that policy is cutting off your nose to spite your face. I mean, at least in the short term. Now in the long term, you could make the argument that it's a smart investment for American infrastructure, et cetera. And I would make that argument. But that's not the argument that they're
Yeah.
selling. It's certainly not
Do
the
you,
argument that people would buy. So
do you think
that's
America
just an
should?
example.
Yeah, no. I think it's an interesting one. Like I take your point. Um, do you think that America um has done well so far in its attempt to become a post-manufacturing economy?
No,
Okay.
no. Okay,
Because
but
there's a lot of people
well,
who've become rich by creating a post-manufacturing economy.
yes. So there are ecosystems where, and people who participated in those ecosystems have benefited from that, right? What there is a lack of awareness. And by the way, Republicans are not talking about this at all. I mean, the only people talking about this are on the left. Is
My fellow liberals.
if you
Yeah, yeah.
well, and that's the thing. It's like if you're gonna be a party for a populist party, right? That we're looking out for the average guy. It's like, okay, the average guy needs to know. And I mean, Obama would say this kind of stuff, and they did have programs in place. And one of the things Biden's got all these programs in place is people don't sell them, they don't know how to access them, et cetera. But you have to have a massive re-education
Learn the
of
code.
you well, and even that's going to go away now. See, you're about to have an AI revolution so everything that you just learned to code, right? Which that was your ticket, dude. If 15, 20 years ago you figured out how to code, you've had a really good couple decades, right? But AI now, like AI can run code, and they can. I mean, I can write some JavaScript or Perl script right here, have the AI do it, and you don't need that's one of the so like look forward. What are the industries that are going to get hit with this stuff, and what are we doing to, because you have a lot of people that want to go to work, and you have a lot of people who would love to learn a new skill, right? And yeah, please make me useful. I can't remember who was Schwarzenegger has a new book out, came out a couple months ago, called Be Useful, and it was what his dad would always tell him, like, so growing up, right? It's like, son, is that useful? Is that useful? This is kind of like the repeating, dad, when we were growing up. I don't know if you were old enough to see this, but did you back when he had his computer with the DOS prompt and everything? Did you see? You know how you could customize your DOS prompt and with a did you ever see what his said
I was always
in
doing
all
my own.
caps? well, because I had to log in on that computer all the time, but like it said think, right? And he would always say that, like to me at least. It was like, whatever, be doing something or get into son, think about that, think before you do that, think, right? Stop, think. And I remember asking one time, how do you think? You sit and you sit, think, let your mind get quiet and think. I'm like, it's really noisy in there. I don't have any idea what it's yelling at me. But Schwarzenegger's dad was always like, hey, be useful. People, and he made the point that like when people are useful, when they feel useful, right? They go to work, they're productive, they do something that makes a difference, whatever the case may be, right? That is truly the happiest that you're probably ever going to be in your life. And it, we're wired that way to be productive for the people. I'm as a father, like I'm responsible for my kids, my wife, the safety of my home, et cetera, all these things. When I'm good at that, I feel great about that. When I'm not able to do that, I feel impotent, whatever the case may be, like I'm emasculated, whatever the right term is. That's not a healthy place for people to be. And right now, you have an epidemic of of people committing suicide in this country, all these different things. When you look at all these stats, it's because they don't feel useful. They're not, and in fact, they're not useful. They're
No,
sitting
no,
around.
no.
And
Unemployment is at a record low.
okay, but suicide is at a record high. So, like when again, and this is my problem with Democrats is that, and Republicans, by the way, anybody who's in power. When Trump was in power, they would wheel out all these statistics. Look how great we're doing. Da, da, da. Look at this statistic. Look at that. Look at the stock market.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but also look at the problems that you have. And it seems to me that the person that's in charge, right? Yes, they should, 5-10% of your time should be spent talking about how good you're doing. Hey, this is what we're doing. Look at the results we got. That's great because people want to see you accountable. But the other 90% of your time should be spent thinking about how do we execute properly now and prepare our people to execute properly 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Nobody's doing that. We're in a it's like when people make this complaint against Wall Street, and it's like, well, these companies, all they care about is their short-term earnings, their next quarterly earnings report, et cetera. And like and people may, in fact, I was watching something this weekend. They're like, Elon Musk, one of the few people that just literally doesn't even care. Like, doesn't care, makes enough money, not a problem. Good luck. Try to fire me. Just renegotiated his pay package. With Tesla. Like he's going nowhere. He's completely invulnerable the way he's structured. He can play the long game. The vast number of CEOs can't do that. Like their employees, they are not found. They don't have the stock position that he has. They have to perform well against that stock report. They will get bumped out. And I think Hillary 15 years ago made this point when she was running, said she had called several CEOs, said, look, just one question. If I told you, hey, look, you make this decision now and you will 10x your company over the next 10 years, right? But you'll have to take a 1 point loss in your stock price for the next quarterly report or for the next year, whatever the case may be. I can't
Most
remember
of
how
them
she framed it.
they can't do it, right?
None of them said yes.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
Which I mean, if you think about this, crazy. Like these are the titans of industry, whatever, American enterprise, they're completely short-term thinking. And that's what's going on right now with our country. And so you have these guys, like, I like a lot of the things that Trump says. I'll like a lot of the things that Kamala says. They're going to say things that are designed for people to go, oh, that sounds great, right? But they're not. They're all very short term. Let's stick a band-aid on that. How can we do this, right? They're not. None of them are structural or strategic in any way.
Well, so here's the reason for that, though.
And that's the argument, by the way, before you make your point, that's the argument for the administrative state, the blob, the whatever you want to call it. And it says, okay, well, at least these technicians are thinking long-term, et cetera, and whatever. I mean, not that I think they're doing a great job either, and screw them, in my opinion. But that is the argument.
If only they were competent, that's
right.
That's the thing. No, you have to think about, for those CEOs, you have to think about who their customers are. And I don't mean like the end user that buys the products.
No, it's the shareholders. That's right.
Shareholders. But what the shareholders want from them is the short-term bump, right? Because they're institutional money, they're hedge funds, retail investors. They're trying to figure out some stuff. They're not investing. Most of them, there are some, of course, but most of them are not investing for that long term. It'd be like McDonald's saying, hey, you know what? We could start offering gourmet meals, and it's like, you could, but that's not what your customer is looking for. So why would we ever do that? So
I worked in a public company once, not as an employee, but as a distribution channel for this publicly traded company, and I'll never forget it because I was like, dude, it's actually when I decided to go independent in my insurance agency because the one carrier that I did work with, they were publicly traded, and I had this opportunity to bring in it would have doubled the size of my business with with one deal, and so it was very good for me, and and it would have been good for the company as well. They would have had, obviously, I mean, it would have doubled the size of their company, but I mean, it would have been a significant bump in incoming business. And in the end, and it took almost a year to put the deal together, another 6 months to take it through the negotiation and everything for it to finally be kiboshed by the company. And what they said was, and they told me, I was on a call with these guys, and they said, look, um, yeah, we understand why this is good for you, and obviously we want to support you. You're a distribution partner of ours. We want you to do well and make money. So it's in our inclination to say yes. However, we're going to have to say no. Here's why: because if this particular distribution channel, let's say it's good for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the number is, but eventually, let's say he says, "Well, I don't want to do business with you anymore," and he leaves. Well, now we're going to have this loss of revenue that we're going to have to make up, and we'd much rather, instead of see a 10% increase this quarter over last quarter, we'd much rather see a 1 or 2% consistent increase over 15 quarters, because that's what makes our company a anchor tenant in the mall, let's say, or in Vanguard or whatever the portfolio that they're in. They're old faithful reliable company that's going to
1%,
consistently grow.
1%, 1%.
And I get it. Hey, look, they got different realities to deal with. I mean, I was furious for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, well, that's the reality. So I need to make some changes in my business so that I'm not held a slave to, some uh, you know uh, forces that are beyond my control, have nothing to do with me or what I'm trying to do. So anyway, I just that's the reality that's out there. And none of these companies are saying, how can I screw things up? They're
No.
given a choice. I mean, well, yeah, we love long-term results, and we're gonna shoot for long-term results. But what we have to do, no matter what, is make sure we meet our earnings report here in 3 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever the number is. It's every 13 weeks. I got to come up with it.
Yep.
That's just where we are. So you could say, um, do I think that's a good thing? Has it generated good results for the American people? Objectively, no, right? Um, is this left turn going to get us the results that you want? You know, or the one thing it would do, and we're just talking like, we're talking about like getting, if Trump got reelected, let's say, one thing it would do would be an absolute shock to the system. So whether that's, whether we come out of that better or worse, it's a splash of cold water to the face, right? Sometimes you need that. So, I mean, I
Hey,
got,
well, what are
I
your
already called, I already called that he was going to win again. So I guess we'll find out before too long.
yeah, I don't think he will. I think that nominating Harris, who is spectacularly unpopular, and I think generally speaking, the more people see of her, the less they like her. It's just kind of like they like, oh, the idea of her, and she's very pretty, and she has,
Well, she's young, yeah.
yeah, she's 59. This is like a good presidential age. But then, like, you hear her talk, and you're like, well, that's kind of a weird thing to say. And then, like, some of the stuff she talks, you're just like, oh, like,
But here's the problem
But
too,
here's
is
the thing:
that. Oh, go ahead.
the only reason they would have nominated her is if there was some kind of ace up in the sleeve to make sure that, again, the voters didn't really matter as much, or that they could be suppressed in the right ways, or whatever, right? But it's kind of like a what do they say? Established dominance, right? It's sort of like a power move. Where, like, I'm going to pick someone that I know for sure the voters hate, just to rub it in their faces. The voters don't
I
care.
don't. And you could call it what you called it. You were calling it the blob.
Yeah,
Somebody else called it
the ecosystem.
Leviathan. Somebody else
Leviathan.
called it Leviathan,
Oh, from Hobbes.
which I
Yeah.
which I thought was great.
Yeah.
Mordor, Sauron, right? Whatever the unseen dark forces. Um, yeah, one thing that I think is interesting to me is what you just said is so true. I mean, she's the more she talks, the less attractive she looks. I mean, to most people who have some eyeballs, and so if you're a fan of Harris and that movement, your goal should be to only talk about Trump all the time. Like, I mean, Trump needs to be. in the center of attention all the time because he also has the same problem. The more people hear him, now his fans love him, but more he talks, more people are like, just I don't know, man. Like,
See, well, this is kind of the
see,
funny thing is I
he,
thought,
well, go. What I was just gonna
oh
say is
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
interesting to watch the last couple of days since her ascendancy, let's call it. Um, it's it's odd to see. Okay, JD Vance, who is it seems to be a good dude from a cool background. I saw the movie. I haven't read his book yet, but I mean, looks like a great family, a great military background, all these different things. He's just seems like a Pete Buttigieg, like seems like a person of honor and respect, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's coming out here and making these crazy, like misogynistic and almost racist sounding comments about her. It's like,
Oh,
why would you? And Trump, same thing. Now, you do have a lot of voices, Republican voices, kind of circling up, saying, "Hey, we need to be talking about her policies and the dangers that she poses to the country, the democratic policies that she owns because she's been part of this whole thing, whatever, right? We got to make sure she's wearing that baggage and has to defend that record because um, and they're 100% right. Like if you want to take her out, the conversation cannot be about Trump and it can't be about JD going off script here and talking down women. Like I mean that is not intelligent, and it's just part of it's like, man, they just can't help themselves. Like, I mean, just put that. I mean, if you truly don't think a woman would be up for the job for whatever reason you got over there, tidy that up, dude. Like, because you're not going to win. I read some piece. I'd be curious your thoughts. I read some piece about the pick of JD Vance. It's kind of um, a useless pick in a way because it doesn't he doesn't bring a state with him. He doesn't have enough of a uh, they're having to build his narrative the same way they're trying to do
oh,
with you see what I'm saying, like
mhm.
politically, like Silicon Valley, venture capitalist,
Yeah.
etc. Lives in Ohio now, but I mean grew up in Ohio. He's got a great personal story, but like legislatively, he's like an Obama. He doesn't have he hasn't done anything, and so it's almost like, well, but he is a absolute like kind of uh, hat tip to that conservative wing of your party. It's not going to get you any new votes, but it definitely like solidifies the votes that you already have, right? It's like, oh, dude,
Mm.
and Tucker Carlson made the point that it makes Donald Trump immune to assassination now because if he had nominated, like, say, a Rubio or somebody like
Like,
that,
he's
it's like,
friendly
well,
with the Blob. Yeah.
Rubio's with the Blob, so like,
Yeah.
oh, well, now we can just take Trump out, Rubio takes over, and the same thing they just did with Biden, right? But Vance, like, he's basically made Vance his heir apparent for Trumpism, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I mean, you don't want to put that guy in charge. He's only 39. He's got 4 decades in front of him to
See,
uh,
I thought the selection of Vance was more about we talked about a Senate record, but he's I think on the Republican side, one of the, if not the most labor and union friendly Republicans in the Senate.
but defined how. So yes, in fact, the union guy that spoke actually said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not really any kind of core legislation or anything. I mean,
No,
it's all it
no.
is talking points.
Right. So there was a few things that he sponsored. Or, I mean, he
Right,
hasn't been in the Senate very long. Like, so yeah, I
right.
agree. Like, there's no. It's not like I mean, in the past, if pre-Obama, I would have said, well, that really matters. Now, apparently, it doesn't.
I mean,
But
during the Obama era, everybody was like, "Oh, this is how can you do this?"
yeah,
But
yeah, I know.
yeah,
So I mean, I thought that would be a deal breaker, but it's not a deal breaker. But I no, I think it's like the more populist working man's party side of the Republicans that picking him kind of solidifies that this is the direction the party is going to go. So not even so much about this election, but like, okay, let's say Trump
future
wins.
election. That's right.
If
Yeah.
if Trump wins, what happens to the Republican Party afterwards? Does it go back to
Well,
sort of the
now you know because he
yeah.
didn't really have an heir apparent other than say Don Jr., who's I mean that's a
Yeah. I mean, or some of the real fire breathers in Congress who like I can't imagine like a President Bobert,
oh
like
you said fire breathers? You mean mouth breathers?
no, I mean
Come
I
on,
breathe
man.
through the mouth too.
Yeah.
No, but like just kind of insane people
MTG, yeah, insane people,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
yeah. That's probably not where the Republican Party is going to go, with like that kind of stuff. But you got to find someone that's not into the whole blob, So McConnell, um, Romney. I mean, these are Rubio, like
Establishment people, yeah.
even to some degree, Cruz. Less so, but still part of that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
The problem with Cruz is like he's so nakedly like I don't know. Don't get me
he's a
started
bit of
on
an
Ted Cruz. Oh,
opportunist.
y- uh,
I think
yeah, just a tiny bit. Yeah,
a bit. Yeah,
just a tiny bit. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm.
Josh Howley. I'll give some credit to Howley. He would have. I mean, people vilify him or whatever for the like the fist pump to the J6ers or whatever. I mean, and that it is kind of a jackass move. But on the flip side, I mean, and he's also very pro labor. He's very like I mean, but
Mhm.
somebody like that presents well and
Yeah.
you know yeah.
So I want to say one thing before we close down. And you mentioned something about Jan 6, and you said that it was like very un-American. Um, and I said at the time, and I'm not myself someone who would be involved in any giant protest of any kind, violent or otherwise. I just sit here and talk. I'm in the ivory tower. But that was, I think,
How's the view up there?
one of the most American things I've seen. And I say the same thing about the BLM guys who turning over police cars and setting them on fire. It's like,
Protest, right?
this is very American. This is very American. And there's a long history of this all the way back to pre-revolutionary war, where like sometimes you just gotta, overturn overturn some stuff, set some stuff on fire in order to make your point that the government is
Right.
out of control, right?
Smear some poop on the walls. Yeah.
Even if you disagree with their point. And so
Hang,
I
hang,
mean,
hang some publicly elected officials. Definitely.
no,
We've been stringing up people a long time. Yeah.
no, but maybe put them on a rail car with some feathers and
With some tar and feathers. There you
uh,
go. Yeah.
now you go.
Ride you out of town on a rail.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
anyway, when I think about like where America might be headed, kind of thing, or what kind of revolutionary spirit would be worth holding on to, I keep getting called back to the film V for Vendetta, which of course takes place in Britain, a fictionalized, highly totalitarian Britain, where free speech has been highly curtailed. There's sort of media is in bed with the government, and the sort of fear campaign to keep people feel like they need the government.
Everybody should watch that movie. By the way, this is a perfect time to rewatch that movie.
It is. It is. I think watch if you watch that, and then you think about like again, even if you disagree with what the January Sixers were up to, which me personally, like I don't know what they were rioting over, but that it was a very American thing to do. And maybe they got to go to jail for it, but that also is a pretty American thing to do. Go
That
to jail.
also is America. That's
They
right.
go
Go
to
to
jail
jail.
for protesting, and there's a
That's
long
right.
history of it.
Highest rate of incarceration in the world. So very American to go to jail and stay there.
Yes.
I will say this. I will say this about J6 and about a couple other things. It kind of goes back to my previous point. There's a tendency, it seems to me, to oversell
Mhm.
things. So, J6, for example, say I'm not a fan of what happened on January. I don't like. Uh, do I think it was an insurrection though? So this is my point.
Oh,
No.
the attempt to overthrow the government.
How is it? Okay, so now there was an attempt to overthrow the government. Okay, the fake elector scheme and everything else, and had Pence actually gone up there and done what Trump was telling him to do, and what
She says he didn't have the
the
authority to
lawyers
do anyway. So even if he had said it, nothing would have happened. That's his view. That's what
maybe
Pence says.
that's his view. However, the chamber was controlled by Republicans narrowly, but controlled by. I mean, he was the tie breaking vote. So you've got a and the House of Representatives certainly was. And so had he done that, and then they would have rallied around. Yes, we have to make sure. I mean, so this was the game plan, was to have him go up there and say we can't certify these not to decertify, just say we need to hold on. We've got competing slates of electors here. We need to get back with the states, get clarity on which slate of electors they want us to accept. And because
There's
that was the whole thing with the
probably some
alternates.
lawsuits that would need to be adjudicated.
That's right. And so
Some
if we
stuff.
can drag this on past inauguration day, which would have been the 21st minus 6 is what is that, 15 days, right? 2 weeks, which certainly would have taken longer than 2 weeks. Then you have a case for, well, how can we inaugurate the next guy? Like, we don't even settle these court cases yet, and they never did certify the electoral votes. So the premise to install the president, have the president elect, which let's say it's Biden on the face of it, even these challenges are going on, but presumably he would have the electoral votes, except we never certified the electoral votes, so therefore he doesn't have the electoral votes. So how can we put him in? And so when they missed that January 21 inauguration day, now you're in completely uncharted territory. And it is very unlikely, the allegation is that what's the incentive for Trump to voluntarily leave at that point? It's like, we just got to figure this out. I'm not going, don't worry. I will be here taking care of everything until they get this sorted out. I mean, like that's the, so if that was the game plan, and had they, I mean, with the exception of Mike Pence showing up and saying and certifying the vote, that those are the foreseeable events. Like, we know how everybody was acting around these things. So how can you say that's not an attempt to there was an attempt to overthrow the government? Now, that being said, was the riot at the Capitol part of that event? So ostensibly, you could say yes. There was, Trump had told everybody to show up, and it's going to be wild, and blah blah blah. And let's go up there and tell them what. Now, and you can make all these counter arguments. Well, he also said peaceful. He also said all these things. Maybe he got out of hand. Maybe there were some FBI agitators in the crowd. Somebody said that, the other day, whatever.
Oh, okay, there were. That's documented. So, we know there were.
Yep. Yeah, right. But I mean, like, but the crowd didn't have to go along with it. Like, they were fired up, and they went with it. So let's say it's a psyop, all the different things there, right? It's still not, that event is not an insurrection. The people there participating are not insurrectionists, right? Trump is an insurrectionist, like Trump, not an insurrectionist. Trump was trying to manipulate the process and stay in power. I don't think who can even dispute that. Right? That's obvious. But the people there are not insurrectionists. And when you bill it as, I mean, what's the plan the plan is to delay this and push the process out. But it's not, you can't label that as an insurrection, because it insults the intelligence of everybody watching. It's like, well, yes, I saw a riot. Yes, they broke some windows. Yes, they desecrated, this holy place of American democracy or whatever. But I mean, come on. I mean,
well, I gotta tell you, you have been talking. You've been talking to people. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on. Let me finish. That overselling causes people who normally would be with you, like they're with you up to a point, like, hey, this is not cool. That initiative wasn't right. They shouldn't have done that. He's pretty nefarious for putting these plans together. Like, they showcased it that way, but instead they label it like this. They put and there is a case to be made of that. These are political prisoners. It's like, well, and when I first heard that, I was like, that's ridiculous. They're not political prisoners. They freaking went up there and committed crimes and trespass. Okay, yes, but the crime was trespass. It's not revolution, And so yes, put them in jail for trespassing, slap a fine on them, send them home with a spanking, whatever the case may be. But it's not. They're not. So to me, it's like that overselling causes people to go. Now, anytime somebody says, "Here's insurrection," because they've said it so many times, people just like, who cares, right? It's like saying Trump's a felon. It's like, dude, I mean, yeah, he's a felon because he paid off a porn star to win election. Like, that's as bad as the media hiding the Hunter Biden laptop. But those are equivalent. Like, let's hide this bad information so that people don't vote against us. It's like George Bush hiding his cocaine problem. Remember when he came out with he got busted for cocaine when he was in college or whatever, and it was in October, and they were like, this is going to throw the election, right? And maybe it did, and they counted the votes properly, right? Like,
he passed up to it.
The October surprise, yeah. So like,
up to it.
To me, it's like this overselling is, and both sides do it. So now they're going to make Kamala Harris out to be the devil and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, dude, I mean, she was a pro. She did all this stuff, and she's a liberal. So okay, so if you don't like liberals, vote against a liberal. You don't have to make her into Satan to vote against, because now everybody that hears that is like, okay, she's not that bad.
Well,
It's the same way that Trump's Hitler. It's like, he's not Hitler. I mean, maybe he's an asshole, but he's not Hitler, you know? And so that's to me, that's where I think people generally, then I'm just talking about the average voter. I mean, there's people on either side that love that. The
well,
average voter doesn't.
I think you might. So I have many friends that are sort of very deep inside the CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times kind of standard bubble. And they've heard the word insurrection and seen video clips of people falling out the windows and stuff and it's been repeated so many times that they kind of feel like they witnessed a storming of the building like in Mogadishu or something. Like they like I remember talking to one. I was like, they were like, "Oh, we all saw it. We all saw the
You're
insert."
talking
How?
about your student,
No, I'm talking
a
about
student of yours?
some of my friends who are like
Hmm.
very deeply into that. Because you you watch a lot of that, but you also watch and listen to stuff from the broad spectrum of the political landscape. As do I, as do many people I know. But there's quite a few people who see anything outside of that ring as uh, probably disinformation, and so they're only watching those things and they're trusting them and believe them. And one of the things that they've heard so many times, every time, is insurrection, insurrection. They're seeing the pictures, insurrection. That they feel like, and when I've talked to them, I said, oh, insurrection. Why are you so sure it was an insurrection? They're like, we all saw it. We all saw there was insurrection. I mean, there were people armed there in the crowd. There was just guns everywhere. They were going to take over. And I was like, God, there were no guns found. There was no, like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you haven't. I mean, you're not listening to the truth. And it's like,
There were no guns there. I don't know how you can. I mean, that's a fact.
yeah, there weren't any. There were none recovered. So, but that's the thing is that like
I don't get it.
they've heard it so many times, and they've seen it with the images. So it's not just like they've seen the images a lot of times, but they've been told what the images mean so many times that now they believe that is what those images are. They're like, hey, or when we go back to think about the insurrection, and then you see video of the January 6th, and then it cuts back. They're creating that mental association for you. This was
okay,
you
but don't you
saw it.
think?
You were watching the
Okay,
insurrection.
well, and I'm not denying that it works.
Yeah.
So a great example on the other side is this whole idea of migrant crime. So I don't know if you've seen this, like Trump. Like, I like to call it Biden migrant crime. In fact, we call it migrant crime. I don't know if you saw that. It's so great. He's like, oh, see, I
Yeah.
just thought of that and say that's smart.
Yeah.
He actually points at his head and goes, smart. But this started in New York. There was an incident. They arrested this guy on the street for some immigrant, took him to jail, and then he got released. And when they got released, put him on a bus, sent him out of town. And I guess he flipped the bird to the cameras as they were following him to the bus station or whatever. And like, so look at this. There's immigrants. We let them in here. They disrespect our police. Blah blah blah. And they're giving the bird to the system. I mean, that must have been played. I mean, back in January, February on Fox, like
Tons.
that
Yep.
was nonstop.
Yep.
Migrant crime. All these, Trump says all the time, hundreds of thousands of people committing crimes. Okay, none of that's true. Like, so first of all, like the incident that happened, they have the footage now, the street footage or whatever. The cops started that and with the guy, and then that guy is not even an immigrant. Like, he lives here, is born here. He happens to speak Spanish. Like, that's it. So like, I mean, and yeah, he gave the bird because he's like, you got nothing on me. It was a complete scam. So like, that's an American citizen, right? Not only that, but like, if you all the stats, if you go and you're a big fan of doing this, you're like, hey, break this down by state and FBI stats, whatever. Migrants, especially illegal immigrants, are like something like uh, a natural born citizen is 47 times more likely to commit a crime than an illegal immigrant, like according to the national statistics. Like the and it's self-evident why. Like, if I'm here illegally, one of my friends said this to me years ago. I'm not proud to admit this, but I was driving with a beer, right? So I was drinking and driving. I had an open container. This is much younger, and she told me something. She said, listen, don't break the law while you're breaking the law. And because I was speeding. Sorry, I was speeding. And she was like, "You got to slow down." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, there's no consequence." She's like, "Look, dude, don't break the law while you're breaking the law because, like, I mean, why would you call attention to yourself? You're like breaking the law, drinking and driving." And 100%, right? Like this is, decades ago. And I've always remembered that though. Like, don't break the law while you're breaking the law. Illegal immigrants know that. Like, why would they commit a crime that's going to
Like,
cause it to get expelled from their country? So, like, but also the statistics prove it out. There's not some crime is down nationally, has been down for years uh, under Trump and Biden both, like the extraordinarily low crime numbers compared to historical. But yet, if you ask the average Republican voter, they believe crime is up, and it's all immigrants that are illegal immigrants that are committing these crimes, and we got to get them out of this country. We're going to have a mass deportation. It's signs in the Republican convention, mass deportation now, pre-printed
oh,
signs.
mass
And
deportation is part of the official Trump campaign.
official platform now.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be a mass deportation. Uh, I think
That's its own issue.
I mean, I'll be unambiguous. We have an illegal immigration problem. It needs to be addressed. We talked about it last a couple of weeks ago about the asylum laws and whatnot. But it is not a crime wave of migrant crime that is being sold. But yet, your Republican voter that watches Fox News, that's what they think is going on. So
You do have this issue in Europe right now because the migrants that they're getting are from. So we have in the U.S. a lot of economic migrants, like want a better life, cross the border. Maybe there's more opportunity, less crime.
right in Europe, you have safety migrants. They're like literally fleeing
War-torn
revolution or
countries.
famine or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
But then they're the thing is that
That we're funding, by the way.
Yeah, true. But like if you think about South Americans, people in South and Central America, the culture is not extremely different from the US. US has, especially in the southern states, there's massive number of Spanish speakers. Most of the people from Central and South America are Catholic. We have a giant Catholic population. So, I mean, there's a lot of similar customs. It's yes, there's
We're lucky. We have we picked the right migrants to deal with, right?
well, no,
Like
but
if they're
I'm just
coming
saying,
from,
like, if you think geopolitically and the demographics,
right,
it's not a massive
you're right.
disruption,
Yep,
right? The problem
right.
that they're having
Of
in
cartels.
yes,
That
you
is
do
the
have that.
disruption. Yeah,
You have to do that. You do have
yeah.
that. In Europe, they're having a lot of Muslim immigrants coming in with very different culture, like different enough to where, like, one of the common complaints that you'll hear from people say in France, especially young women in France, that there's like parts of the city where before, 15 years ago, they could go walk through on their way to the club, but now you'll probably get assaulted. You'll get assaulted by someone who thinks because you're dressed in the way that like a fashionable French
Right,
woman might be dressed
right.
in is a
They're
signal.
enforcing. Right,
Sharia, right?
they're right. Yep.
Right. So and again, so just a
But you don't have
massive
that going on
cultural
here
difference, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like,
yet.
well, I don't think you would have that. Like, you would have probably some things involving sort of cartel activity or again, sort of the general lawlessness, right? If you're coming from a place where it's quite normal to pay off the policeman and these laws are routinely ignored, that's like, well, you come over here and you might not know anybody. You're like, well, just do the normal stuff, like the boss comes around and says, you vote for these people, you vote for those people, you keep your
Right.
nose clean, mind your business,
You
own business,
keep your job. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Keep your mouth shut. Yep.
but I don't think so. The federal government keeps statistics on this stuff. They haven't noticed an uptick in federal crimes committed by non-citizen or illegal immigrants. But that's federal. There isn't a single database state by state. So
No,
that I don't know.
there are
Nobody
states
knows.
well, Texas is one of them. Texas keeps their own statistics on. Ironically, I got to give credit to Trump for this one too. He's the one that came up with this whole migrant crime theory, and he's been the one selling it on. Now Fox, of course, is selling it for him, but it's not actually like a state kept statistic, state by state. However, Texas is one of the few places that actually does keep that. You can look that up.
Interesting. What are they showing?
again, native citizens are way orders of magnitude more likely to commit crimes than illegal immigrants. And again, it's not that's not an excuse for
Oh,
people
wait.
that they should be illegal.
Here we go. Homicide conviction rate in Texas. I looked it up. Thank you for pointing me out to it. So 10-year period from 2013 to 2022, homicide conviction rate in Texas for illegal immigrants was 2.2 per 100,000 compared to 3.0 per 100,000 for native born Americans. So not an order of magnitude, 40% higher.
40% higher, yeah.
The homicide conviction rate for legal immigrants, 1.2 per 100,000. So here I think is the way to get our murder numbers down. More legal immigrants.
Kick out all the illegal immigrants and kick out all the citizens and just
get the legal ones in.
Legal immigrant. Everybody get out and we'll start over.
We'll start over. It'll be better.
We'll start over. None of you belong here. You got to fill out an application. Oh my goodness, man. Tom Christoph's been posting on here. Tom, I love you, buddy, man. I see he some of these comments. I'm not really, Tom is very thoughtful, so I'm just trying to kind of read the way he's speaking here. So he's like, yeah, Tom, if you breathe air and drink water. So he's Tom. I don't understand this question. What is the best self-evident idea consistent with V's message?
Oh, this is for V for Vendetta.
Yeah, that has spread through art, literature, symbols, etc., that outlived him. Yeah. What is the best self-evident idea that has outlived him? What idea has sustained with?
He's fictional.
That persists beyond.
He's a fictional character.
Yeah, I don't know. Tom, give us the answer, buddy.
The movie ends. Well, so maybe there's more because it was originally a manga, I think. So the movie ends right after he. I don't know. Does it count as spoilers if the movie's 20 years old?
No, you can't spoil V for Vendetta. It's like spoiling Star Wars. The rebels win.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, right after he dies, the movie's over. I think the movie itself is kind of like a sort of a love story towards liberty, and I think it's kind of a meditation on Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty or give me death."
Give me liberty or give me death. Well, and in the movie, he doesn't change anything. He makes a statement and dies. And I mean, maybe so Tom says maybe life. I'm like, maybe futility. Don't fight the system, bro.
You'll die.
You will not make it. The system, what's that song? I fought the law and the law won. That's the deal, man. But in this case, again, Trump emerges as a person of hope, an image of hope, because he's fought the system. He's fought the law, and the law did not win.
Not yet.
In fact, I'll get it printed on T-shirts. You'll buy my felon T-shirts. They're on sale right now.
They were selling them at several of his rallies with his mugshot on.
I know, man. It's the thing is like, and one thing that I think he's so good at, man, is just embracing. Like whatever they throw at him, it's like, oh yeah, and he just wear it as a badge of honor. Yeah. They're trying to take me out. That means they're trying to take you out. Which I don't know how that logical leap goes, but it's great branding and people love it. They're like, oh yeah, they're attacking him. That means they're attacking us. We can't put up with this. It's like that's a very effective crowd control, crowd manipulation, whatever you want to call it. So
it's a crowd pleaser.
Crowd pleaser, yeah.
So hey, before we go, any updated predictions?
No, I still think it's really, despite all of the hoopla around Harris, and she's had a great rollout, and we'll give credit to where the credit's due, the media for carrying water for her. But
get ready for everyone. I love her. She's so special. She's so inspiring.
Oh, you already hear it. What a great person. All this stuff. And maybe she is, right? But I haven't seen
whatever.
But I also don't think so. Here's the other thing, and in fact, Tom's a great person to point this out. Tom and I were talking about this earlier. It's not also intelligent, in my opinion, if you don't like Harris, to like attack her personally for like, I saw some things online. It's like, oh, she's some so, so-called lawyer, et cetera. No, I mean,
Lawyer.
she was a member of the bar. She was a prosecutor. She put people in jail. Now you could
Sure.
say, now one of the effective memes I saw was the one that you had sent me, which was a portrait of Kamala, but it was a mosaic built of all the tiny little mug shots of all the black people she'd imprisoned and kept in prison longer than their sentences to use for free labor or whatever, discounted labor. Those kind of things, which again, it's interesting because that's an attack from the left, that she incarcerated too many people. Whereas on the right, the sentiment is, hey, lock them all up, deport, like people need to toe the line. So to me, it's like if they come at her, with oh, she's a woman, oh, she's a minority, oh, she's DEI hire, heard that a million times from all you, oh, DEI hire, oh, DEI vice president, blah blah blah. It's like you think that's funny? Like, uh, do I think the population is over DEI in a lot of ways? Yes. Um, but do I think that people get offended when they're like, look, I mean, I've got a daughter. I think she can grow up to be anything she wants. Do I get offended when people say women, suck? Yes, I do. I think
So
it's not cool, So
here's
like to me,
here's
I don't
the
know.
thing though.
Well,
DEI.
so anyway,
Remember.
let me just finish
Yeah.
my thought to your point. So updated predictions. I still
Yeah.
think it's Trump's to lose. I think the pick of JD Vance, unlike the prevailing narrative out there, oh, they screwed up, they picked too fast, da, 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 they should have. I disagree. I think JD Vance is a perfect pick for him, very ideologically aligned. Um, now, of course, a few years ago he was saying he was terrible, and I think he actually did call him Hitler, which is interesting. That guy is now on the ticket. Um, but whatever. I mean, got a great life story. I think that sets up whether Trump wins or loses. That sets up Vance and anybody who gets on the Vance train. That sets him up to be heir apparent to that whole movement, and also will raise up. Vance will be great at picking out people that align with that are the younger set that can kind of come in. So I think what we've seen, regardless of the outcome of anything, is that the Trump movement now it has longevity, the potential possibility for longevity. Whether that's good or bad, that's what it is, because it's no longer. I mean, still very much a cult of personality around this one man for the moment, but he's put the seeds in the earth that will allow it to be a full fledged whatever it is. Um, After the election. So whether they take power and then entrench themselves in government, or whether they are rejected from power and they start the next civil war over it, which that's what all the convention speakers were saying, is like, hey, if they steal this one from us, it's going to be war. I mean, you hear people saying that from stage. So it's like, that's what some people that are like, oh, well, they're a threat to democracy. That's what we're
That's
referring
what
to.
they're
It's like,
talking about. Yeah.
we didn't make you get on stage and say these crazy things. You're getting on stage and saying these crazy things. So like, I mean, oh, they called Trump a dictator. He's the one that said that. I mean, he said that in a softball interview where Sean Hannity's trying to tell him, like, well, I mean, you're not going to be a dictator, right? And Trump's like, only on day one, It's like, nobody made you do that. You walked into that. So like, to me, that's where people are. However, I still think it's his to lose. I think the country wants somebody strong, somebody who is not going to take any, pardon me, shit from people, and is going to lay it down. And the other thing that's interesting, you saw some interesting moves from China this week, where China walked back a sanction that they had put in place, and they've never done this before. But they had I can't remember the product. They had a sanction on some product that they had levied on us, and they withdrew it. And I think it's a tiny little. I read that as a tiny little olive branch too, because it's a pet thing for. I have to look this up for it, but I really do think that's a sign that they see, okay, well, he's coming back. You see these people. The Mexican president just a couple days ago was like, oh, Trump's been a great friend, he's a great leader. Da, da, da. That's from the president of Mexico. So like, I mean, I think the tea leaves are pretty easy to read. The momentum's at their back. I think I don't see right now. Everything looks good for Harris, like you said, $100 million, whatever. All these tiny small donors. That's fake. The money's real, but it's being laundered through these people. That I don't mind saying it. That's what's going on, and if there is a groundswell of support behind her, that's great. But I don't see it right now. And I think the longer she's on stage, the more of an empty suit she's going to look like, because that's frankly what I think she is. So, and whatever you want to say about Trump, like, he's not an empty suit by any means. I mean, nobody knows what the hell is going to come out of his mouth next. So like, nobody's telling him what to say or when to cut an interview short, unfortunately. So Yeah, my prediction is I don't change anything. We'll see. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it. I do think you just watched that movie Civil War.
Yeah.
Maybe we could spend the last couple minutes talking about that. Uh, I, I I do think if Trump does not get in, I think there is going to be. They've all said it, so I mean, there's going to be a big problem. People have been saying that all week. If I've heard one consistent thing, it's like if the assassination had been successful, we'd be in a war right now. And so and they're like, hey, if they monkey with the election, they steal it from us again. Which, of course, whichever side loses, they're going to say it was stolen, and there was whichever side. And I mean, I'll go on the record with that one too. And the difference is, I don't think you're going to see Democrats get up in arms to try to overthrow Trump if he wins again. I have not heard any of that language from. I can't even find. And I look. I couldn't even find a fringe source out there that was like, if they get Trump in again, it means war. I haven't seen anything like that. In fact, I've seen before the coalescence around Kamala, like it was almost like it was a foregone conclusion. I heard several Democratic Congress people say, well, if he wins again, I think we just got to get, lined up for 2028. I mean, there was almost an acquiescence before the switcheroo, or whatever you want to call it, with Biden stepping down. So, but you do hear that a lot on the right. I mean, that is the incessant talk, like, oh, this would have been war. So there's a lot of angry people on that side that feel like the last one was stolen from them. If, for whatever reason, I do think that's a real possibility. So,
So
from that standpoint, it's almost like, well, I kind of hope Trump wins so that we can avoid a civil war. But it's almost like you're being held
I
hostage.
have seen it on the left, by the way.
Oh, have you?
But
Okay, send me a couple.
I
links,
read more super left. Again, this is like personal stuff where people are talking about, I need to go buy a gun now because if the Republicans win, I might need to defend myself. I might
That's
need
not
to
the
shoot
same
them
thing.
before no. Like I might need to attack
That's
them
not the same
before they
thing.
attack me, kind of thing.
That's not the same thing. That's just common sense, by the way. And it's your Second Amendment right, and you probably should have a gun to defend yourself,
That's why
because
I
there's a
said,
lot of crazy
please,
people out there.
please go buy
Democrats
one.
and Republicans get a gun.
Yeah,
like
buy a few.
But that's not the same thing, bro. That's not the same thing. You don't have people
saying that they
would
might
rise up in arms. Yeah,
they might have to shoot first to protect themselves. Anyway,
but that's not controversial. You probably will.
here's my prediction. So my prediction is we're going to see the Blob, the ecosystem, get behind Harris in ways that we all right now, looking at it today, thinking forward, are going to be like, that was really quaint. The conversation we had back on July 24th. So I've already sent some of the texts that we send back and forth, where Axios has gone back to correct 2021 article that they wrote, several articles where they claimed that where they were talking about how Harris is Joe appointed her as the border czar in order to take care of all this other stuff, and now that she's the nominee, and
they're trying to rewrite that because it's embarrassing because she's done such a terrible job.
Well, so what they said was they said in a new article that the Republicans are trying to brand her as the border czar, but she was never the border czar. And then Twitter, now that community notes are like, well, here's 3 times where an Axios said that she was the border czar, and they've gone back and changed each one of those articles, and they put a little.
But we have the receipts, man. We got the screenshot.
They put a little correction at the bottom saying, well, accident. So this is just like the first of many. We're gonna see even sites that you didn't realize were part of the Blob will be uncovered as part of the Blob. You and I will be able to see.
Oh, you're one of them too.
Like, I thought you were okay. No, that one too. So you and I will notice it, but a lot of other people won't. And but here's what I think. I think Trump gets elected.
Tune into the show. We will hold these people responsible. Yeah. We've got the receipts.
I think Trump
can't go back on what they say.
I think Trump wins the election. However, where we'll see the exact mirror of Stop the Steal from the Democrat side. Just
Mm,
like how we joke about like, oh, we just recast the parts in the play, and you earlier were the villain, but now you're the hero, and stuff like that. So it's like, remember how the filibuster, when one side is in power and they're like annoyed that some random senator somewhere, like, the filibuster is a tool of
right,
oppression,
right, right, right.
and then when it switches back around, they're like, no, the filibuster is our sacred duty, and it's like, oh, we're going to see the same thing. We're going to see the same arguments. We're going to see the same everything from Stop the Steal.
Well, that's
And
good though. Then
but
I hope we can count on the Republicans to support their right to do
no,
so
no.
and say that it's
Here's the
very
thing.
patriotic.
This time though, it will work.
Oh,
Yeah. Stop the Steal will happen. There'll be some issue. This state or that state will decline to certify their electors. They'll send multiple sets. So there'll be some other thing, some other deal. And they'll be like, well,
oh. So what I was describing earlier,
yes.
it's like, oh, you guys should have executed better because now you just gave the other side the playbook and they're just going to use that on you.
Well, because here's the thing.
Well,
Trump,
and I'll tell you this. It's disturbing how close that came to almost working. And so, if your prediction is true, it's almost like, dude, like if you leave the front door of the bank open, like, I mean, don't be surprised when they steal all your money.
money. Well,
Right.
so
Yeah.
just imagine the Stop the Steal, but instead of Newsmax and OANN doing it and Sidney Powell, imagine the entire blob. Imagine every time they talked about the election, they said the contested election, the
Mhm.
potentially fraudulent election, every single time. So the
Mhm.
2024, yes, the contested election of 2024, we're still trying to work out. We're hoping the Supreme Court steps up to the plate and actually examines some of it. And imagine everybody saying it in unison all the time.
Mhm.
And you and
Mhm.
I, when we have this conversation in January sometime, one of us will have drank some of that Kool-Aid. And we will say to the other ones, like, contested election, because it'll have gotten into us. That's my prediction.
Mm. Wow, that's so sad, dude. Such a sad prediction.
Yeah, but I'm an optimist.
Unfortunately, very plausible. Very plausible. So, well, we may have seen. I mean, they said over and over again that this next election might be the last one. So, I mean, there's so many ways that here's what's crazy. I think I saw something that Elon Musk had put out a couple years ago, saying that there's a 1 in a billion chance that we are not living in a
Oh,
simulation,
right. The
right?
simulation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about whatever, and he had this chain of reasoning, which I can't articulate. I'm not a rocket scientist, but uh, it's like wow. Out of all the scenarios that are out there, which I mean, we just named a couple. Uh, a smooth transition of power is only one of those outcomes, and there's all these other possibilities that
Hmm.
are now unfortunately, that are just now on the table. And I mean, I don't know. The bigger question is, what does it actually mean for the American experiment, this project, whatever you want to call it? It's very very difficult to look at it and say that it's a nation in any meaningful sense anymore. The project may be coming to a close.
We had a good
But
run. Western
yeah,
Western
yeah,
forces unite.
250 run. Yeah, 250 years. All
California
right,
and
man. Well,
Texas
hey,
apparently team up.
I love ending on a positive note. It's a very, very,
Hey,
very good.
next week,
I will.
next week we should do something other than politics, because I think, but it's been so juicy. The last few
If
weeks have
they'll
been
let
so
us.
juicy.
If they'll let us. I mean, it's been the craziest 10 days.
We're gonna try,
And
friends. We're gonna try. We'll talk about something
I
else.
did hear somebody. I did hear somebody say the other day. They're like, I was hoping for a better script. This is so transparent. It's so obvious what they're doing. I was hoping for a better show. This is the best you can do. It was about the assassination attempt. They're like, oh, I mean, come on. This is not even who buys this official narrative here.
Sorry.
All right, man. Dude, it was good. It was good as always, man. I think this is our longest one yet. 2 hours. So
Whoops. Okay. We have to have more self-discipline next time too. Less politics,
yeah,
less
like
time. There we go.
as long as we're in charge, we do whatever we want. Yeah, you can't tell us what to do.
Watch the
All right,
Kool-Aid.
man. Cheers. Yeah, that's right. See you next week.